Hello, everybody. How are you doing out there on this, again, confusing Monday or day after a Steelers game? Much like almost every week, we are left wondering just who the hell this team is that we're watching. Whether they're good, whether they're bad. I don't know if they're good at defense. I don't know if they're good at offense. I don't know if Keith Butler's good at his job. I don't know if Matt Canada is good at his job. Maybe Mike Tomlin's a great coach, and maybe Mike Tomlin's a horrible coach. Maybe Ben Roethlisberger is washed, and just maybe he isn't. I don't know. I wish I had more answers for you guys, but somehow after 10 games, I have even less answers than I did in September. Here to help me decipher some of this nonsense is my good friend and often cohort on the Day After show, Mr. Gage Ryan. How you doing, my friend?
Oh my goodness, I'm doing about as well as I could be after a loss.
Okay. Well,
I'll put it that way.
When we were talking before the show, I do want to say you were a little bit more positive than you were at least after the tie last week, and I'm glad to hear it. I did see a couple comments that called you pretty negative last week, although considering what I saw on social media, I thought you were pretty tame relative to most people. But I think I don't know. I mean, just initial reactions. How are you left feeling after last night? Because I kind of feel positive. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel bad. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I mean it's a complicated question, but like you said last week, I mean, isn't it always? I mean, Liz, I came away from that game with probably as many positives that I could list as negatives. I thought Joe Haeg showed good run blocking. Like literally the first play they had Joe Haeg and Najee breaks like a 10-15 yard run. Like right off the bat, it made a difference, and like all of a sudden the run game is working. Holy shit! But by that point, we were kind of far behind and had to stop running the ball. But the point being, there was Joe Haeg, there was the passing game that somehow opened up finally. Like I don't know, I came away from that game like just disappointed in the defense, but also understanding that TJ, Joe, and Minka were out, and that makes a gigantic difference in our defense. I liked I was discouraged by the lack of the running game against the worst running defense in the league, but I was also encouraged by the passing game. So I'm very 50-50 about this game.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing about the 2021 Pittsburgh Steelers is that they're Schrodinger's football team. If you can watch them at periods and say, wow, this is a good football team, and then you can watch them at periods and say, wow, this team is terrible. I think for me, so all right, so I accepted going into this game that this was going to be a really hard battle, and I told you guys yesterday, you and Austin in our 5-star chat, which, by the way, Austin, hello. Are you ever going to be on the show ever again? We miss you, bud.
What the hell,
yeah,
Austin?
I know. We had a good thing going with the trio, but he's busy with school, and I think he's got a little break coming soon, so hopefully we'll have him back on soon. But I told you guys yesterday, and this is something I would take heat for, even after he played well. If you gave me the option in some sort of a cosmic deal, I think I would have rather taken Minka and TJ and Mason over Roethlisberger and not those guys, because I just knew, especially without Minka, that they were just going to have a lot of trouble on the back end of that defense, because all that team does is chuck it deep, and Herbert is, I mean, he's fantastic. He every throw he makes is just spectacular. And I think there was watching that game back, which, by the way, I got a little highlights package going for you guys live later today. Not like a full show, but a little treat. Even the Steelers getting a couple stops towards the end there were like 3 plays that were just straight up drops. I mean, he made the plays. There was one Jared Cook dropped. There was one somebody else dropped. But I don't know, man. The defense, I've said repeatedly that to me has been the more disappointing unit this season, and nothing really changed my mind yesterday. And I guess that's, how much do you put on the injuries and who's actually playing out there? It's hard to judge.
I mean, if you're going to say that there isn't a drop-off from Minkah Fitzpatrick to Carl Joseph, I think you'd be wrong. So, I mean, if you think that there isn't a drop-off from TJ Watt to Taco Charlton, there is. So I think it's fair to say that
one of them is a football player and the other one is a taco. I mean, come on. That alone, come on.
No, but I mean, there may be good depth pieces, maybe, and that we can debate about that all day. But there's definitely a drop off there, so that's something you have to keep in mind. Like, do you? I said this before we went on the air, but like, is T.J. Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Joe Hayden worth 4 or 5 less points? Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Like, could we have won this game if we had those players? Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. Maybe.
Yeah, no,
maybe it's likely.
I totally agree. I mean, I think the people sleep, I believe, on how good Joe Hayden still is. I think a lot of people kind of want to have a tendency to put him out to pasture because he's a 32-year-old cornerback, and everybody just kind of takes it for granted. But I'm in the gang that really thinks that Joe Hayden is a very good corner, and I think having savvy players like that is always an advantage for you. And they missed him, and then obviously Minkah and TJ. Yeah, what do you got? What are you gonna say?
I love Joe. I think everyone loves Joe. He's a great guy on the field, great guy off the field. Yeah.
I just think people underrate how good he is. I really do think he is still really good.
Well, yeah. So what I meant was great player on the field, but point being, he's, I think, maybe a step below where he used to be, but that's still pretty damn good. He's had some blown coverages. He's given up some big plays, but he's got veteran savvy. He's got good play recognition. He plays his spot and knows his role. And I mean, I think that's good. I think that like that veteran savvy is something super important for a secondary that's not very experienced by and large. I mean, Minkah is, but
even Minkah's really not. I mean,
yeah, that's fair.
Edmonds been in the league the same amount of time as Minkah. He just was here a year longer, but they both, I think, 2018 rookies. That's not exactly what you're. Joe and Ben and Cam were playing in 2010, so it's not exactly a ton of experience there. I think that there's encouraging signs here. I don't want to be entirely negative. I think while we're on the defense, we got to get onto the hot button issue of the day, at least the way I see it, by what I've seen on social media. I feel like people are starting to turn completely on number 55, Devin Bush, and I wonder how you feel about that, because I have been leading the charge of the guy is coming back from major injury. Let's give him some time. But man, the tape just looks bad, dude. I mean, bad. I don't even know. I mean, if he is not trusting himself this much, I don't think he is helping you by being out there. Is he any better than playing Marcus Allen? Marcus Allen still can't buy a snap, even in like third down or something. I'm not saying he's great or whatever, but if you're really struggling to have somebody cover Austin Eckler on a 3rd and 5, you're going to tell me the guy who used to be a safety maybe can't do a little bit of a better job than whatever this version of Devin Bush is? I don't know. That's just a thought, but what do you think about where we're at with Devin Bush? You taking a mulligan for 2021 and looking forward to 2022, or are you out completely?
Well, I didn't think that we were going to... Wait, are you talking about like this season, or are you talking about just Devin Bush specifically?
Well, I'm talking about Devin Bush specifically. I'm saying, are we at the point now where we're all just going to kind of accept he's not going to be a good player in 2021, and we're going to hope that another offseason is going to help him? Or is your inkling maybe this guy is just not really going to be that good of a pro? Because I did put a tweet out a couple hours ago, kind of half joking, but kind of serious, which I put it like, whispering, and I said, like, Devin Bush he was getting sucked up in the run game in 2019 too, but people just ignored it because he had fumble recoveries, a couple interceptions. The guy's super athletic. He can maybe make some stuff happen, but I saw the same issues when he was a rookie, and I guess I'm kind of wondering maybe that's just who he is.
I think it's a mixture of things. I don't think, like, very seldom in football are things just one-dimensional. There's this problem, and that's why everything's wrong. No, it's usually, like, football is a super complicated game with a whole lot of factors in it. We all know that, but it's a machine kind of a game where there's the play calling, there's the positions Devin's being put in, and I think that those are two vitally important but overlooked factors. You have Devin Bush in man coverage, and I don't know who's calling that or what they get from calling man coverage with Devin Bush, but it should be 3 to 5 years.
Excellent.
And there's also Devin Bush is an all right blitzer. He's not great, but he's at least serviceable for the Steeler defense.
No sacks.
No sacks, but he's not being blitzed very often. Actually, I think he had one sack, if I'm not mistaken. I thought he had a sack in like the second or third game of the year. But point being, but he's not being put in that position very much. They're making him this coverage quasi Ryan Shazier type player, and that's not who he is. And I hate to go back to the Tomlin thing, or if you want to put it on Keith Butler, I guess you can do that too. But like, he's just not being put in the best position to succeed. Now, I also think it has something to do with the fact that Devin he has his limitations. He's not a good run defender. He's too small. He gets absorbed by offensive linemen constantly. It just is what it is.
I mean, to me, you look at just the tackles. I mean, it's a simple stat, but
oh yeah,
that's something that the middle linebacker in a defense like this should be eating up. I mean, the guy had 109 combined tackles as a rookie, and
yeah.
We're looking at now, we've played 10 games. I believe he's played them all. I don't think he's missed any games, right?
I don't think so, no.
I don't think so. Or did he not play week 2, maybe? It looks like I'm looking at his box score. I don't remember him being hurt. Either way, he's played 9 or 10 games, and he's got 46 combined tackles. I mean, it's not exactly a blistering pace for a guy who, at the very least, you don't expect him to be doing tons of interceptions and that. He's not Ryan Shazier, but you expect him to be eaten in the run game, even if it's trailing tackles. And I think he's got less tackles by a wide margin than Minkah Fitzpatrick. So
yeah,
I don't know, man. It's bordering on that territory where I think you need to start trusting yourself, or you need to start reassessing some things. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks to see because Bush, he kind of had the feel of a first year Bud Dupree in a way, because he was flashing. He was showing these flashes of brilliance, but he also had these bad moments, and it just feels like he's seeing significantly worse or significantly more bad moments nowadays than we've seen in years past. It feels like a lot of his bad tendencies have almost been under a microscope because the defense is so thin right now. Like, it's just a whole bunch of bad factors, but I don't think that Devin Bush is
well, and I think the other big thing here is that you have to realize what's going on too with the defensive line in front of him. I mean, it's just not not up to snuff. It's not as good as it needs to be because it's Cam Hayward and a bunch of other dudes. I hate to keep harping on this, but I still go back to that trade deadline. You can't tell me they couldn't have gotten a decent defensive lineman. If I'm sitting here on the outside and I made the assessment, pretty quickly, by like week 6, I really did not think Stephon Tuitt was going to be coming back this year.
Yeah.
Then if you're really going to say you're all in on this season, the Steelers, they have some cap space, man. They're not really right up against it. Just
6 million, something like that.
I think it's closer to 8 or 10 actually, but either
Oh wow.
way, I mean, you can make some stuff happen. I never felt they did that last little step of adding to the roster that they could have,
I agree.
particularly after injuries. You know, because Alu is a huge loss, and obviously too it is. We just never had him to start. Yeah, Devin Bush. When I look at tackles here, how about this? He's 1, 2, 3. He's 5th on the team in tackles behind Cam Hayward, both safeties, and Joe Schobert. That's that doesn't to me imply that the guy is tearing it up by any stretch of the imagination.
No, and I think that's like the better side that you might see with his stats. I mean, you saw what a drastic drop off it was kind of from his first year. What'd you say his first year was? It was like over 100 tackles.
Yeah, he had like 110 or something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
that's not amazing, but that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, for a middle linebacker, you want him to be up in that
Yeah.
100 tackle situation there. And
Yeah, especially for a rookie. Like I thought he played well his rookie year, but I think it's the injury. I think it's the positions he's being put in. I think it's him individually regressing and not really fixing his bad tendencies.
yeah,
I think it's the fact that he's not good in the run game because he's smaller than other middle linebackers. Like it's a whole bunch of things with him.
I would tend to agree with that. If you are in the chat, make sure you hit that like button real quick. Got more people watching than have clicked that button, so click that button, help us rank in the algorithm, get a few more views. You know hits are going to be down this week because it's a Steelers loss, even though we don't want it to be. It's just how it is. Help your boys out here at 5-Star Matchup. Click that like button. Stick around while we keep talking about this.
Make sure that you subscribe though. If you don't subscribe to the channel,
that is the thing. Do you know this? This is a totally true fact. Like 75% of our watch time is people who are unsubscribed. Like, hit the subscribe button, peeps. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I show up at your homepage. You like the content. Hit the button. It's not so hard. It helps us out. It helps us, sell stuff to advertisers, all this. Help out the team.
subscribe to the channel or I will find you, and I'm not joking.
This is true. The man has ways. He has ways. All right. Well, I don't want to be totally negative because I do think that there are some positives. I think we have to talk about the offense and what we saw out of Roethlisberger and what we saw out of the passing game, which to me was positive. They really did turn this on in the fourth quarter. They really did make it a game. I thought they showed fight. I thought, this team, if the back half of the schedule wasn't so brutal, I really would be holding out hope that they could get something going because I do feel like they're really facing a lot of situations and they're starting a lot of rookies.
I hear you.
And they're moving in the right direction. They're not getting like blown up. They're not. Every game is a dogfight, and some of them they're figuring out how to win. Some of them they're losing. But ultimately, I just feel like they're battling. And even though last week was kind of a bummer, it was just kind of a fluky, weird game, quarterback situation, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But this week is against a legitimate quarterback who's really good. Without your guys, and they went out there and they hung 37 on the board and got some stuff going. So I think positive signs for the offense, don't you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think that it showed that if Canada's offense needs to put up 37, I'm not saying that they abided by the game plan the whole time. It's clear that they went more shotgun after a while. But point being, it showed that the offense can put up those kind of numbers if they have to. And I think that you saw that Ben just kind of got comfortable being in the shotgun, checking down constantly. not the whole time. Not the whole time. He had some good throws down the field, but just doing what he does and just taking what the defense gives him.
He attacked the middle of the field a little bit more, which was nice to see.
It's encouraging.
Seemed like it was part of their game plan. The offensive line, I think, is still always going to be a limiter on this incarnation of the Steelers because you saw it when they needed it, when San Diego needed to get some pass rush at the very end there. They just got it. I mean, they got 2 straight sacks and pressure on the last 2 plays, and it's just it's a bummer. I know you're playing without some of your guys up there, but man, I don't know. I would have liked to see a little bit more conservative to start that final last gasp attempt with Roethlisberger. I told you, they never showed a good replay of it, but this is my problem with Matt Canada. And it's been stewing. I've been stewing on it for a couple weeks now. But it's these situational moments where I feel like he's failing a little bit as an NFL coordinator. And what I mean by that, I think a lot about this with guys making the transition from college to the pros, the Najees of the world and stuff. And I think of, to Najee, right? They played at Alabama. How many times were they even in a game where they were down by 14 points? Like, and even if they were, what does that take in college? Like, there's games all the time where like Alabama or Georgia will be down 17-10, 17-7 in the first quarter, and then they'll score like 43 unanswered points. It's just different sport. And I think,
well, that's true.
And I think with Canada, I think sometimes I think he sees the situations a little wrong for what the NFL game is. And my point with this was that first play where Roethlisberger got sacked on the 2-minute drive. In the NFL, teams will give you a 5 or 7 yard out on that play. They'll give it to you all day. And you watch that play again, I won't be able to see it again. They didn't show a good replay down the field, and I won't see it till the all-22 comes out. But they had 2 guys sit out in the flat, perfectly covered, non-options, completely pointless. And then 3 guys right up the middle, Freiermuth, Washington, and Deontay, just run goes, completely out of the picture on 1st and 10. What is the point? You're on your 20. Like, you need to, the phrase drive starter is a thing for a reason. Like, get this thing moving, get a little, momentum, and trust your quarterback. And I don't know, man. Canada, and then that, and some of the red zone stuff. I think he struggled in specific moments, and I'm really wondering if he's going to end up being more than a 1-year experiment.
Well, I think that there was a lot of good that you saw from Canada's play calling, and I also think there was some bad. You're definitely right about the late game. Well, maybe not so much late game, but like the situations with him that he doesn't always call the best plays with. I thought with this one specifically, it's a pretty bad vertical. It wasn't. Basically, it was just verticals with 2 people.
Yeah, it was just running. 2 guys out in the flats and then 3 guys just running straight up. I don't know if they were posts or what. I didn't see. Like I said, I couldn't see downfield, but they were out of the frame immediately.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, at the end of the day, you had very little run game. Well, not very little, but you had relatively little run game. And you were able to put up 37 points. I mean, you can only be so mad with that. This definitely wasn't a loss because of the offense, in my opinion. Anytime you put up 37 points, especially
they took 1 possession over at the 1 yard line. Yeah. And then they took another possession over like at the 20 after the interception. So, I mean, it inflates the offensive numbers a little bit.
That's true, but I also think that the big problem with Canada's play calling right now is the red zone, or specifically like at the goal line. I think it was, I don't remember if they were at like the 2 yard line, the 3, 5, something like that. Anyway, and they start the drive there, and he throws it, I think it was 3 out of 4 times. It might have been 4 out of 4 times. And it's like, listen, man, you got to understand, you have Najee Harris in your backfield. Even if your O-line is bad like ours is.
I know.
You give it to him. Like, if it's at the 2 yard line, I don't care. Run it 4 times with Najee. He's going to get 2 yards. You know what I mean?
No, I do know what you mean. I think he just wanted to
be more committed to the run game.
He just wanted to see what they could get in the pass game. And I don't know, man. It is kind of surprising when you, I don't know, just some of the way these games have flowed. I think the last 2 weeks, even though they ended up being, decent running the ball statistically against Detroit, these last 2 games, I really felt like there was more opportunity to keep handing the ball off, and they just didn't. Early in this one, I didn't think Najee was cutting it up, but they were possessing the ball. I mean, the first half, it flew by. I think everybody's going to forget about this because of how crazy the fourth quarter was. But that first half, the first quarter was over in like 10 minutes because it was just 2 possessions. Yeah. The whole first half, I believe each team had 3 possessions, no punts, no unsuccessful drives except for the Steelers, which I was still mad about. I still believe that was a giant tactical error on their second possession. The Steelers, you know, they come down on their first drive, they possess it for half the quarter and kick a field goal. Chargers take over. They score a touchdown because the defense is just dog shit and incapable of stopping a sneeze yesterday.
Yeah.
Then you possess the ball again and take it right down the field again, and they're stubborn. And it's like this thing I say all the time where Mike always says, well, we don't pay attention to the outside noise. And then they'll do something the following week that seems like they're responding to exactly what somebody was talking about, which last week everybody was talking about the 1st and goal at the 5 where they didn't run it with Najee. And it was like they got 1st and goal at the 5 and they just melted down. And then they got into 4th down, and instead of taking the easy points in a game that clearly their game plan was, we're not going to be able to play good defense. Let's stretch this thing out on offense as much as we can. Because really, the thing that really just set this game off and set it in the course that it ended up going in was just the sequence of possessions at the half. Because the Chargers snuck in a 3 right before halftime, and then they got the first possession, and I believe they scored a touchdown. And that double dunk thing, you know, that's the most powerful move in football. When you can get the last possession and the first possession, it's the only time you can do that. But yeah, until that point, it was setting up to be a close slog of a game. The Steelers acknowledged, okay, we got to possess the ball, we got to run it, we got to take time off the clock. And it was working well, and they could have taken a field goal to go 7-6. And I just wonder, it seems like nothing in a game where they scored 40 points each almost, how big that 3 points is. It's different, man. It really is different when you're, you know, you would have been looking at a 41-40 game if everything played out the same and you just had that field goal. I don't know. That's no excuse for letting them go 98 yards, though, and they started the 2.
That's actually what I was going to get to, is like, I'm actually content with a lot of coordinators, Canada included, choosing to go for it, like, inside the 2 or 3 yard line. I mean, because look, man, you're not... Usually, if your defense has a spine, ours didn't yesterday.
But that's why. That's why I think it's
going. Because it was bad yesterday. But I mean, look, we didn't think it was going to be that bad, did we? Did we really think that they were going to go 98 yards?
Dude, I thought the defense was going to be really bad. I really did. I thought they were going to have to score 35, 37 points like they did, no, you're right. You can't excuse letting a team go 98 yards. But well, I don't like passing up free points early in a game. It's, you know, it would have been a 7-6 game. I know it's disappointing. You'd rather have the touchdown, but it's not like our offense has been, you know, peaches and cream all season. I think you got to take points when they're presented to you.
Yeah, I understand your opinion on that. I will say, though, this is another reason why I don't particularly blame Canada for it, was because you got to imagine that the game plan was to run it and use play action, you know, throw it short and just keep possession of the ball, win the time of possession game. On LA's first 2 drives, they got 2 touchdowns. Yeah. All of a sudden we're down 14-3, and it's like, yeah, you can run the ball, but I mean, like, do you really want to burn up all that clock and have Justin Herbert get the ball at halftime? No, you kind of have to start throwing. And then on top of the situation that I just presented, and on top of all these injuries that we have on defense especially, then LA gets a field goal at the end of the second quarter, then gets the ball back at halftime, and then scores. Like, it's just, I find it very difficult to blame the play calling, not even Ben. I don't even really blame anybody on the offense for losing.
See, this is why I do think you could blame Ben for not hitting Claypool in stride. Still got to score a touchdown, but he's got to hit that deep throw better than he did.
His stat line made him look better than he was.
I don't know. I have mixed feelings. I thought he played really well. I don't think much like last week. I don't think the quarterback play was why they lost last week or tied last week, and I don't think it's why they lost yesterday. So, but yeah, but the reason I say the field goal is such a big deal, and this is This is what I talk about with Tomlin when I say he's becoming a dinosaur as far as analytics go, because sometimes, every once in a while, it's like he sees what these other guys are doing, and particularly when he plays them, when he plays the Rams, when he plays this team, he plays whoever, he'll sometimes like try to act like he's doing the stuff that they do.
I'm hip.
But it gets you killed, because what happens by not taking those points, the Chargers took field goals yesterday. What'd they take field goals? 2 times? They scored 41, so they scored 5 touchdowns and 2 field goals. Is that correct? Something like that.
It sounds so much worse when you say it out loud.
I know it does, but I'm just trying to figure out how it played out.
Yeah.
But I mean, no matter how you look at it, the Steelers scored. Did they score 4 touchdowns? They did, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, they scored 4 touchdowns and 3 field goals. So
yeah, but Najee had 1 and Ben had 3.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I'm just saying, the whole slate of the game, it's all about maximizing possessions. And as I said, there was 1 possession in that whole first half that nobody scored points on, and it was the Steelers. And that puts you behind the 8 ball in a game that you knew it was going to be an offensive duel. I hate being the guy who goes back on like little tiny first and second quarter decisions, but I thought that was a monumental tactical error, and I held that belief even when it was a blowout, and I still held the belief with how it ended. I think it changes everything. But encouraging signs from the offense, and we got to give credit to one guy in particular, I think, because he's continued to be the best player on offense all season, and it's Deontay Johnson, who really is becoming a true number 1 wide receiver, don't you think?
Oh yeah, no question. He's not. I don't think he's there yet, but I think he's flashing more than he ever has. So I think he deserves to have that said about him.
I think he's starting to do things. He's starting to do things where you go like, wow. He's having little moments where I'm like, wow, that was a great play. He had that great one where Ben made that awesome throw down the sideline where it just went over that guy's shoulder pad, and I don't even know how Deontay caught it, but it looked like classic Ben and AB kind of stuff. So I
agree.
I continue to be really compelled and impressed with Deontay Johnson's growth, and I hope he gets a second contract here. Claypool had a nice night, but I still think I just want a little bit more out of him. I think he has it. I think he has the ability to be more than he is. It doesn't feel like he has the impact on the offense that I think he should, but that's a tough thing to really judge, I guess.
I still maintain, like, I stand by my Deontay and Claypool are like DK and Tyler Lockett analogy. I think that's fair. I think that Deontay is showing the same ability and space that you saw from AB. Maybe not as good necessarily, because AB really was just, I know that we called Martavis Bryant an alien, but like, Jesus Christ, AB was an alien.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
He just found ways to get around people, and he was fast as hell. But like Deontay, he has that same feel to him. He has the same kind of style, and I mean, he has, 1 drop in 10 games? Like, you really can't argue with that.
No, he's been great, and he plays, a ton of snaps, and he is he's really blossoming into an awesome player. He's drawing pass interference calls, which, by the way, I thought it was a little ridiculous that they picked up that pass interference late in the game on that 3rd and 5. It was after the Chargers went for it on 4th and the Steelers took over, which was an awesome play by Joe Show to get the stop. They took over, and that to me was really where they lost the game. Even though it was where they took the lead, I really think that was where they lost the game. They took over with like 3.5 to go. And you just have to get a first down. Herbert. You have to possess the ball. You can't give it back. To the point where I would have at a tie game, truthfully, and I know this sounds easy to say after the fact, but I might have even thought about going for it on 4th and 5, or at least calling plays differently, like you were gonna go for it on 4th, because I just knew. Once they kicked a field goal and they weren't able to chew that clock, I knew they weren't going to get a stop with that version of the defense out there, and sure enough, they didn't.
I mirror that sentiment. That was pretty much how I felt at that time too. Like I was like, oh yeah, we gave Justin Herbert 3.5 minutes. That's pretty much game right there.
But that's another Canada thing though. Is like, man, there's moments where you just have to have a gotta have it play, and it can't always be a slant to Deontay. They had one huge moment where he broke through and turned the field, and I think that was maybe when they had their first second half touchdown, when you said, okay, like they're gonna get into this thing. But it's not always gonna be that, and you gotta be able to create things that can, you just gotta be able to have something in the playbook that says, okay, this is getting 6 yards. Like, I know this is getting 6 yards, and I was disappointed with that. For as great as the offense was, all you can ever ask for in football is to, own, or to be able to control your own destiny. And after that turnover on downs, the Steelers did control their own destiny. They just didn't really handle it. They kind of petered out there, went 3 and out, and kicked a 45-yard field goal, and of course gave it right back to Justin Herbert, and then it was over. But I don't know, man. I just encouraging things from the offense, encouraging things from Roethlisberger. Not so encouraging things from the offensive line, though. What do you think about that situation?
What, the O-line?
Yeah,
the O-line was an O-line, I think we can say. That's as generously as I can put it. It's like, listen, I don't know why Gentry. I don't know why Banner is still on the bench at this point. It doesn't really seem like there's any reason to. I mean, is he really any worse than Chooks or JC Hassenauer? JC seems like a good guy, but God, is he bad, especially at center. I don't know why we don't have Banner in there. I don't know why we don't have Joe Haig in there full time at this point. We're running the ball as much as we are. We might as well just keep Joe Haig in there.
Fair,
he's way better.
He was the one who got killed on those last 2 sacks on Roethlisberger.
Yeah, that's true, but he's not a pass defender. He's more of a run guy.
He's not a guard either, though. They had him playing guard because of the injuries.
Yeah, so I mean, it's partially his fault, partially not. But, like, let's be real, he's a really good run blocker, at least for us he is. Like, you saw that the second that he went in that game, literally the first play, it was a 10-yard run to Najee. Like, the second that he went in there, all of a sudden we can run the ball. Like,
all I know is if I watch an offensive line play a whole game and it looks like Chooks Okorafor is the best player on the line, I don't think your offensive line is very good.
It's not, and that's why we shouldn't have cheaped out on it.
Yeah.
Like, that's honestly why I wasn't really a fan of the Pat Freiermuth pick. I mean, I am now because Pat's great, but like, I really thought that second round pick was going to be on an offensive lineman.
Well, listen, they have if you want to really attack them on anything, I think their hesitancy to bring in some free agent help in this offseason is kind of baffling, because they were smart in getting Ingram. Unfortunately it didn't work out, which they really missed him yesterday, to be honest. It would have really been nice to have him taking some of those snaps. I still think they're fools for trading him. I mean, like, for nothing. I guess get out of here if you don't want to be here, but fuck you, man. You signed a contract. Either play or be inactive for the rest of the season. Like, I don't know.
Hey, I didn't get enough snaps, and meanwhile he had, like, what was it, the 3rd or 4th most snaps on the defense?
Yeah, that was the thing that didn't really get me about that. Everybody was like, well, he didn't know he was going to be a backup. It's like, he played more than 50% of snaps in all but one game. I don't know. He had one game where he played 97% of the snaps. Dude, what do you want? It's not like you were tearing it up last year anyway. I mean, come on. I don't know. I didn't get that. Not to get on the Melvin Ingram situation again, but they just, with the line in particular, man, I think they must have gotten it wrong with how healthy Banner was going to end up being. Because I think they really banked on him being one of the starters at tackle. Because otherwise, there were guys out there, man. Russell Okung, I don't even know if he still got signed anywhere, but, there were guys that have been starters in this league. Morgan Moses, I think, the guy who used to play for the Washington. Yeah. There were guys out there that you could have signed for not very much money, and they just refused to do it. And it's still strange to me. I get wanting to build your own thing from scratch, and the Steelers have said over and over again that that's how they like to build their team, but cost you big time. Even though they did hold up pretty good yesterday until the very end, but
Tomlin's a dinosaur.
He is.
And I mean, like, that's what frustrates me, and that's why I was excited about the Matt Canada hire. We're seeing that it's still like not a pure Canada offense. It's like part Canada offense, part Ben's offense. Like, you know how we've talked about before that like it just doesn't really have an identity right now. They're like, I feel like we're not gonna get anywhere with an old mindset like we do with Mike Tomlin. They don't look at other teams and figure out trends. They're just like, no, we're gonna focus on ourselves. They're nameless gray faces. It doesn't matter what they're doing, which just matters what we're doing. It's like, no, man, you have to figure out what everybody. I don't know.
No,
I don't
you're
understand.
Right.
It
you're
just
right.
feels
they don't
like we're
lean into trends, and yeah,
we've been spinning our wheels in the mud for quite some time, to use a Tomlinism, if I may.
No, I think that's a fair observation. I don't think you're going to see a full change really until Roethlisberger goes.
That's
just
true.
That's the thing, is these moments where I don't know if Tomlin's going to make a big deal out of every week. He has been so sort of cheeky about mentioning stuff like quarterback mobility and how it affects short yardage situations and all this, right? Which is clearly like kind of half joking about Ben and Mason, but also like clearly there's something there, and it seems like he realizes that's where the league is going. Then at least in these moments like this last drive, then this is where you have to be able to do things to cover up your quarterback's limitations. If we're going to acknowledge that Roethlisberger has limitations, look, it's not like Tom Brady moves in the pocket very much, okay? And Tampa Bay's had plenty of great 2-minute drives. It's not as simple as, oh, well, he's a sitting duck in the pocket. They're going to send the blitz. There's nothing we can do about it. How about calling a play where he rolls out? I know he's not super comfortable with that, but he's done it a bunch this year. Why not get into something where he's moving and he's picking and choosing? I don't know, man. I can be disappointed that the offense didn't take advantage when they got that turnover, but ultimately they got it back with 2 minutes to go. And, I mean, not only did they not give themselves a chance, they just went backwards.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they had, what was it, 2 minutes?
Over 2 minutes. I believe they went to the 2 minute after the first sack.
Okay, so they had over 2 minutes. So let's say they put together a good drive. Nobody wants to hear this, and I know that I'm going to be painted as the pessimistic guy for saying this. Let's say they take a minute, and there's 90 seconds left on the clock, and they score a touchdown. I think we all know, deep down, that Justin Herbert probably puts together another drive and wins the game anyway.
Sure, that's possible, but it's also possible. Yeah.
I can't blame an offense for scoring 37 points, even if they got a possession at the 1 yard line.
It's also possible that they score with 15 seconds to go and they have no chance needing a touchdown.
Yes, but I mean, it's also possible
that they kick a freaking field goal on the second possession and then they're only down by 1 point and they only need to get it to the 40 for Chris Boswell to win the game. How about that? It's a little bit of a different. I know. I'm just saying.
Such hindsight.
I know. I'm just saying it changes. There's a lot of things there. It's a tricky.
It's true. It's a complicated game.
It is. I still think it was a fun game to watch. I think just as a fan of football, I wish it was. I wish I wasn't really a vested party because, man, once they took the lead, I'm just sitting there being like, wow, I thought you had no chance, and now I'm feeling like, wow, you can't lose this game. Yeah. But that's Steelers football, right? Trademark.
Isn't it always? I mean, we can't. It's illegal for the Steelers to play well for 4 quarters.
Mm-hmm.
They'll show flashes of brilliance, and then they'll lose to the Raiders. They'll look really good, and then they'll fucking have the Browns put up 47 points, or what was it, 48 points in the playoffs?
Yes, yes, yes. The
Like,
The
listen, man,
Steelers multiverse. That's what X says in the chat. That's the Steelers.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's the Steelers it's the Steelers seesaw. Like, they
Yes.
just, we can't stay too far to one side, like, or the other. Like, we can't be amazing, we can't be terrible, otherwise the universe will implode. We have to be okay.
I said it last week, and I'm sorry to say it, but that tie, it just sealed their fate. There's no way they're not going 8-1. I'm so sorry, and I hope I'm wrong. But oh my God, this team is going 8-1. Definitely. There's certain things that are unavoidable.
I thought the same thing when that fucking tie happened. I was like, we're gonna go 8-8 again.
This is, you always look at the football game. Used to be in 4-game chunks. Now with the extra game, it's a little different. And I've been looking at it in really like 3-game chunks, because that's been kind of like how the season has worked out, right? It's like you had the random game week 1 against the Bills, which didn't make any sense. Then you had the 3-game losing streak, Raiders, Bengals, Packers, nightmare, right? Then after that, we looked and we had that Denver game. We had the Wilson-less Seahawks, which, by the way, they lost against the backup quarterback with Wilson yesterday. They're a nightmare. I have a friend who's a Seahawks fan, and Seahawks are really struggling right now. And then they had that 3-game stretch where we were like, okay, if they're going to get back alive in this thing, they got to win these 3 in a row. And they did, the Broncos, Seahawks, and Browns. And you say, okay, great. And then they got the Bears, Lions, and Chargers. We say, all right, well, you should win these first 2. These teams are bad. Then the Chargers, who knows? We'll get there when we get there. And what ended up happening, of course, is that they beat the Bears barely. And then they tie the Lions. And then they lose to the Chargers. So the way I consider it, since the losing streak, they've underperformed my expectations by a half game. The Lions tie should have been a win. The Chargers game, they had a chance to win, but it is what it is. When you really look at it, they've been in every game. They're fighting, they're scratching, they're clawing. Their offense is still bad. But let's look at this next chunk of 3 games right here, because I think this is really going to be the determining factor of, are we really fighting for this division? Are we getting in this thing? And are we going to have a chance to be in the playoffs? And the next 3 weeks, we have at Cincinnati versus Baltimore, and then short week at Minnesota. To me, those are games that if you're going to make up ground, you have to win all 3 of them, don't you think?
Yes, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Really?
I don't.
See, I'm going to say that the Pittsburgh Steelers fan in me, the guy that's still just a little kid who's a fan of the team, I think they win these next 2 division games. I think they go to Cincinnati, they get a dub. Cincinnati's no good. I watched them yesterday. They're just they're whatever. They have a good deep passing game, but as long as Minka comes back and hopefully TJ comes back, I just have a feeling the way they've been playing, I think they're going to let off a little steam offensively, score some points, and I think have a nice game. I think send Cincinnati back to earth a little bit. Then that Baltimore game, Baltimore just keeps finding ways to win. I give them a ton of credit for what they did yesterday without their quarterback. Some of that is on the Chicago Bears, though. The Bears just find ways to lose games, don't they?
Yes, they do. That's got to be like one of the worst teams in the entire league to root for, the Bears,
because brutal.
It's so just awful. I feel terrible for
pretty
Bears
much
fans.
Everybody in the NFC North except for the Packers just seems like a really painful fan existence for the last 20 years, because they'll all give you tastes of being adequate, and then especially the Vikings. The Vikings, I think, are the ultimate just sort of
oh my God.
Like, I just would be so miserable to be a Vikings fan, because they're always close to good enough, but they're never...
No. Listen, you think about this with the Vikings. Think about all of the third-round playoff heartbreaks they've had, like the missed field goals, the blown leads, the blowouts. Think about all of that. and then remember they've lost 4 Super Bowls.
I know.
God
I
bless
know.
Minnesota fans. Really, God bless
I
them.
know, it's brutal. But
But
I
as
think,
far as
they're games that you can win, man. Minnesota doesn't blow me away. Their run game is everything over there. But obviously you got these first 2 division games. And I mean, you might say I don't think they're going to win them both, but you also can't say you don't think they have a shot,
well, if I were to go I'll give my own like somewhat predictions on them, like you just did. Okay, Cincinnati. We're going into Cincinnati. Listen, Joe Burrow is a pretty good quarterback. I understand their offense isn't really anything special, and yet he made our defense look like shit, and that was with Minka.
Yeah.
So I'm
Defense
not
was
saying
playing bad at that time, and
I'm
the offense was hopeless, but sure.
I'm not saying that like
Yeah.
we can't win that game, but I do not think we'll win that game, especially on the road. Against the Ravens, yeah, I think we're going to beat the Ravens. I think we have Lamar Jackson's number. He's never really put up good stats against us. Like, we contain him. We usually put good pressure on him, and we force him to make mistakes. Even, what was it? Was it Alex Highsmith that got the interception on him last year?
It was indeed, yep.
Yeah, I think we do well against Lamar Jackson. I think we really could win that game. I think we will. As far as Minnesota, I mean, listen, Minnesota's another 8-8 for life team. And I mean, Kirk is good against bad defenses and bad against good defenses, or at least, against good teams. I don't know. I think Kirk is going to have a good game against us for some reason. I couldn't even really tell you why that is. I mean, he has what is it? Something ridiculous, like an 18-2 touchdown interception ratio.
Yeah, he's got nice stats, but ultimately they're 5-5 with losses against. They lost to the Bengals. They lost to Arizona. That's a good loss. Lost to Cleveland 7-14. I mean, that's not exactly super exciting. Lost to the Cowboys. Lost to the Ravens. So they have lost to some good teams. They beat the Chargers and Packers last couple weeks. It is what it is. To me, the Vikings, that's still that I chunked that in because it's just easy to digest that way. But I still think that the crucial moment is just these next 2 division games. Again, like I said earlier in this show, in the NFL, all you can really ask for is to control your own destiny. And the Steelers still have 1, 2, 3. They have 4 division games left, and if you want to win your division, go win these games. You win these 2, all of a sudden you're going to be 7-4-1. You have a chance to go 8-4-1 against Minnesota, and then you got some tough ones. Although Tennessee, without Derrick Henry, looks a little different than it did with Derrick Henry. At Kansas City the day after Christmas is still daunting. But then again, you finish the season again home against Cleveland and then at Baltimore. It's really going to come down, truthfully, to your division games. If they're able to win their division games, that's 4 more wins. That puts them at 9 wins. Is 9-7-1 good enough to sneak into the playoffs in the AFC? Probably. You don't think?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know. Everybody's pretty middling, even if it's not. That's accepting that you were to win all your division games and lose every other game. But if they just win their division games, that's 9 wins. And then really all you got to win is one of Minnesota, Tennessee, or KC, which, I don't think that's an impossible task. And suddenly you're looking at 10-6-1. And I think that does make the playoffs.
I don't think there's a chance in hell we go 10-6-1. I could be wrong, but
you gotta win your division games. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's what it'll boil down to. I mean, it kind of does with most any division, really. It's your divisional games that really makes or breaks your playoff seeding. And I mean, like, I'm not saying that we can't get hot towards the end of the season. We've had that in some years under Tomlin, but I mean, I don't know, man. Like,
it's not like
offense...
the other. It's not like our other. Baltimore is still. We all have the whole AFC North has a brutal schedule because we all play the same teams. So Baltimore's got Sunday night this week, Cleveland. So one of them is getting a loss. Then they play at Pittsburgh, at Cleveland again. They play Cleveland twice in 2 weeks. And then they play Green Bay at Cincinnati versus Rams and versus Steelers. I mean, shit, the Ravens, you might even say is, that might even be arguably tougher than the Steelers stretch, Granted, the Ravens are probably a little bit better than the Steelers, but still.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely are. I mean, just because, having such an elite running back in Lamar Jackson, I think kind of puts the team a little bit above the Steelers right now.
Sure, that's fair. But you got to figure the Browns get them at least one of those two games. And the Steelers have two chances against them. And I don't know. I'm picking the Packers against them, and I'm probably picking the Rams against them. So, it's, you got this thing, man. It's there for you.
No. It's definitely there. We definitely control our own destiny in this. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I don't know. I have a hard time buying in anymore. I have a hard time. I don't know. It's. Do you know that meme of the brain or whatever inside the box, and then it opens the box and the brain gets punched, and then the box expands. And closes again. That's kind of how my hopes are with the Steelers nowadays.
Hey, I hear you. I think, I tweeted this. I tweeted this yesterday, and I think this is a good way to look at things. Which is, I saw this when people were getting fired up yesterday when this game was a blowout, and they're like, "Oh, Tomlin's gotta be fired," and blah 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 blah. I get it, but I come into these games feeling different than I did in 2017 or 2020. When your team is stacked and you feel good about what they're putting out there, and you think the ceiling is really high, then you have to go into every game saying, okay, we should win this game, and if we don't, then it's a disappointment. I don't see it that way. I really see this game as, I see this version of the Steelers as being much closer to the 2019 team than it is to the 2017 or 2020. And while I know that's not as exciting because none of us ever thought we were going to win a Super Bowl with Duck Hodges, and rightfully so, I just want to caution to people, it's also a little bit more fun to live in that world. I'm enjoying it more because of that. When the Steelers got in the game last night, I was genuinely surprised because I really just didn't think they had it in them. And so I come away feeling pretty positive about that performance because I thought they did a nice job and showed some fight. And I think it says some good things about them going down the stretch. There's difficulties to overcome, but it is what it is. You're not always going to go on the road and beat quarterbacks that are better than yours. But they fought, and they got into it, and I like that.
I agree.
Oh, man. Our beloved Pittsburgh Steelers are something else. You never know what to think about them. It's been 10 weeks, and we know as little as we did in September. You gotta love it. If you are in the chat right now, it looks like plenty of people have hit that like button, but if you haven't, make sure you do it. If you like what we do over here at the show, make sure you give a little consideration to hopping over to our Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/5SMU. Hey, look, it's like $1.50. You could do $4 a month if you want. It's like a cup of coffee. You don't go to Starbucks once. You support your favorite YouTube channel. Consider it. Throw a couple bucks in there, and we would really appreciate it as we've got nice little... we still got, 7 more weeks of this thing to go. We'll be here bringing you
God.
I know, it's exhausting, isn't it?
It really is.
But we're going to do our best to bring you the best content every single week covering our beloved Pittsburgh Steelers. Gage,
Absolutely.
you want to leave our people with anything before we get out of here on this early afternoon edition of the Day After Show?
That's a good question, actually. I feel like there was a lot of good from this game. I really thought that the offense stepped up. I thought Ben stepped up. I thought that, like it or not, I thought that Canada in spots stepped up, and I thought that his offense, putting up 37 points with a prehistoric quarterback and a bunch of rookies, that's more the arrow is definitely pointed up, I think is fair to say. And I think that the arrow can be pointed up on the defense too when we get back Joe, Minka, and TJ, three of the elite players on our defense. So I mean, there's a lot to look forward to, and at the same time, we have the same situational unawareness from Canada at times and Mike Tomlin. So I mean, it feels like a 50-50 season. It feels like we could beat any team and lose to any team. And I mean, I guess that makes for a fun game. And I mean, it's also, it feels like most Bears seasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's certainly not what we expect. It's not what the standard is typically. The standard is no longer the same.
No.
However, I'm with you. I think I see tremendously encouraging things from the growth with the quarterback specifically. Earlier in the season, I truthfully wasn't sure that he still had this in him, and I thought yesterday was the best game he's played. Probably since the last time probably since that Bengals game where he threw 4 touchdowns last year. Some people love that Colts game, and I do love that Colts game, but he played shitty for a whole half until he played good, so I can't include it. But that Bengals game last year, I thought that was probably the last time that I was like, this is Ben Roethlisberger, and I thought I saw that yesterday. I think for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were watching our guy. You know, he's not exactly the same, but it was a close approximation, and he could win some games for this team. And I think the next 2 weeks, man, I'm going to be honest with you. I think they're going to win these 2 divisional games. I think they're going to get to 7-4-1. I think we're going to be getting excited going into December, right into the thick of things as we get into the holiday season. I think the Steelers are going to be right there till the end. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if we're going to be mad. I don't know if we're going to be impressed. I have no idea. But I just feel like they're going to keep fighting. And, you know, given all the stuff that they're battling, injuries, personnel, etc., old quarterback, I think that's the most you could really ask out of them, isn't it? So
At this point, yeah, I think it's just that's something I give Tomlin credit, is that he has his players fight and scratch and claw for every yard.
He got them through 10. He got them through 10 games, starting a million rookies, and they're alive. I mean, there's so many teams. I mean, granted, like I said about Seattle, like, I know Wilson missed some games, but they got Russell freaking Wilson in his prime, and they're 3-7. Like, it's, you know, I mean, Chicago yesterday, you watched them just essentially try to lose that game to Baltimore, just unbelievably bad down the stretch after making the plays to win it. And the Steelers just, at the very least, they're not embarrassing. You know, they're going out and they're holding their own and doing what they can. And so I guess I'm proud of my guys. I don't know. I think they're going to win these next 2 division games, and I think we're going to be getting hyped in a couple weeks.
I hope so.
Well, anyway, thank you folks for hanging out on this early afternoon edition of the Day After Show. I have a little highlights package coming out for you guys. It's just going to wrap up the crazy final quarter. I didn't do like my typical VO. I cut it together kind of like the throwback game I did last week, but it's just a little experiment, still trying to figure out how to bring you guys the lost games and try to get the views. So we'll see how it does. I thought it was a fun final finish to the game. Check it out when it comes out in just a little bit, and I will see you guys next week.